Hi guys, we'll today talk about data science life cycle. Uh, I'm Rishi, I'm from Capable, and we do data science sessions as well as data science courses all over India. So today we'll talk about data science life cycle. We'll just wait for another 2 minutes and then we'll get started. Okay, so we'll start today. We'll talk about data science life cycle. But before jumping to that, let me introduce you about me. I'm Rishi. I have worked in data science field for quite some time. I had worked with Infosys, ITC, and few other startups in both in data science field as well as machine learning. That's about me. I'm working with Capable here as a mentor to provide a session as well as uh, some topics of interest to discuss and talk about. So here we'll discuss about what all things a data science life cycle or anyone who is looking into data science would look into, right? So like the topic says, it's a data science life cycle. Now what does it is aiming for? The main aim here is you use data to solve a business problem, right? That's why the whole data science looks into the same aspects of you get a problem and you use data to solve that challenge, right? Now the whole life cycle of a data science project would start from looking into a problem. Let's see that. So like I said, what is data science life cycle? The whole data science life cycle is an in iterative steps, like step by step. So it starts with looking into the problem statement, getting the data, cleaning the data, understanding more of data, and then going ahead and creating a machine learning model, or let's say a statistical based model, or even a deep learning model. So all these steps fall under the data science life cycle. Once the model is built, the next step would be to put it into production, use it as into an app or a front web app, so something like that. So the idea here is that the whole data science life cycle, how does it look from a person who's working on a project or who's starting up in data science, right? So before we jump into what are the steps, there are some people who are generally involved, right? So in any of the data science project, what will happen, you will have some people who are domain experts, people like business analyst, data scientist, machine learning engineer, and data engineer and architect. So let me just give you one example. So domain experts are something like who has an experience in that particular domain. So let's say that if there is a problem with just to see how many people are having above 50,000 US dollars income and above how many are having lower 50,000. So you will have some domain experts who will know that okay, these are some of the features or these are some of the challenges to look into that particular problem. Business analysts, they will be looking into the analysis as well as from the business prospect. So that is just like an example of a business analyst. Data scientist is some people who will be working into creating that type of a solution, right? And machine learning engineer would be something to look into the models which are being built, how the model is performing, how the model is being trained, or which type of model is being used, and so on. A data engineer and an architect would be looking into those aspects of how the data is going to flow through the data science project, as well as how the data should flow when there's a large sum of data coming into the picture, right? So all these are some of the people who generally get involved. Yes, there will be many more people also, but these are some of the main people who get involved into. There will be many higher management people, as well as the clients with whom the problem is being come into the picture. Okay. So what's the steps? Now the steps are very straightforward. You have to first identify the problem. Now problem identification, or let's say narrowing down the problem actually existing, right? So once you understand what the problem is about, or what the problem the clients are facing, or let's say what the problem is actually in and around, and then you will look into the existing steps, right? You understand the problem, you think of, okay, so we are totally understand the problem with the domain experts as well as the data scientists who are working on that project. They will try to narrow it down into different steps, like, okay, is this a, let's say, is it a classification based problem, is it gonna be a regression based, or is it time series? All these are some of the places where they will try to understand the problem, right? The next is more like a business understanding, right? So you do understand the problem and where is it where the problem is in the business respect. So what you will see is how this problem is impacting the business. So that is one step you would be looking into the business understanding, right? So once you are clear with the problem identification as well as business understanding, you will start looking into the data, right? Once you understand the problem, then you have a data to look into it, to understand that whether this type of data or what type of data is going to be needed to solve this problem, right? Sorry. So once you have these three, you get a rough picture of what your steps are going to be about, right? So what we have talked about is about understanding the problem, the problem's impact in the business, as well as from where are we collecting the data. Is it going to be a database? Is it going to be a service or an API call towards a data center or somewhere else that you're trying to get the data on, right? Right. The next would be that you have got the data. Now you are started to process the data, right? Now you have to understand that pre-processing and analyzing is both very important for your next steps, right? Like I said, this is like a step-by-step process. You can't just straight away look into a problem and start getting on the data and start creating your models and all. You have to look into the pre-processing. Most of the challenges comes because every data source and data source places are going to be different, right? So you have to look into the ETL operations as well as different ways the data is being processed, right? So for example, let's say that you have a data which is mainly going to be of string, or let's say which is going to be words. So you have to think about, okay, this is like an NLP based problem, and what pre-processing steps are required for a NLP based problem. All those you will try to do it in this pre-processing step. Once you are done with pre-processing, what you'll do is you'll start looking into the data. Once you start looking into the data, you will understand that, okay, what is the meaning of each column. Let's say it's a simple rows and column data, and you want to look into each column, in which way the column is going to explain or is going to mean, right? And how you can use that data which is present inside each column for analyzing it, right? And that's how you want to think of that, okay, this is a numerical column, I have to, let's look into the mean, let's look into the median, let's look at the different analysis techniques. So all those comes under exploratory data analysis, right? And once, let's say that you are clearing each steps, you will keep on connecting with people at higher management as well as people with whom you're working on that particular project, right? Once these all are done, you understand a rough picture of, okay, I have got the data, I have understood it, I have cleaned it a bit, I have analyzed it a bit, and I am good to start with some next step. Now the next step would be model development, right? So what you'll do is, you have got the data, you have understood, and you have selected some of the machine learning models, or let's say statistical or deep learning model, any of the models which you think that would solve the problem, as well as with the data what you have is going to be useful, right? So you won't be looking into a classification based problem, and you would be using a regression model. That's a totally wrong step, right? So you always have to have communication between both the client as well as your team, that you will be looking into these some set of models, right? So what you do is, you start looking into the models which are existing, or which you are something which you are creating your own, depending on the problem statement, right? So once you have achieved a model, you evaluate it, you train it. So first you train the model, with the existing data which you have, as well as you test the model which you have based on the data set whichever you are using, right? So both the training evaluation happens on the particular model. Let's say that you have come to a final end, that there is this model which is working really great, right? So you have done your tuning, you have done every step of that model to look as good as for this particular set of data, for example, let's say, right? Once you're done with this, you just can't take this model, or let's say store it in a pickle file or in any other format which is needed. You take this model and see to deploy it. Now when I say deployment, it is more like the model is pushed into a production environment. That means that anyone within the team can take up that model, use it for the problem statement, and get the results out, right? So that way what you're doing is, you're deploying that particular model with whichever has been worked good, and you pass it over to the next stage, right? Now what you do here is, the last step would be something like taking a decision based on insight, right? Now you have created a model, you have deployed it. Now you understand that, okay, the model is doing good, the model is able to predict really good, and it's doing a very well to do task. So that's something like you are taking you're providing a support for that model which is being deployed, right? Is it working good? Is it being tuned at each parameter, or is it working well to do? So that's what you are taking a decision on, right? So once all of these steps are done, you try to see that whether the model which you have created is answering and is solving that problem or not. So this is the whole life cycle of a data science project. Yes, there are many areas which I would have not covered, like hyperparameter tuning, as well as best model, and the future deployment, right? So what I'll show here is, in the next screen, is a simple life cycle, or let's say a live project with some code, to just give you an idea that any person, like a single data scientist person, can pick up a problem, look into the data, and then try to create a model, and then later on you can even use it to deploy it or share it across the client to see however he wants to use it, right? He or she wants to use it, right? So let me just stop sharing this and share with you the window for the code. Give me a minute. Yeah. So what we are going to look into in this project is like income data, and the main aim here is to create a classification model which is taking income as a classification label which is greater than 50,000 or less than equal to 50,000. So you are taking as a input as a human person, and classifying whether that person is going to have salary greater than 50 or less than 50,000 US dollars, right? So in this data, what you can first of all, we'll share this with you all in the WhatsApp group, online group, and you guys can play around this. Feel free. There's also, will share the data set. You can go to this Kaggle adult data set and pick up from there. Okay. So what I'm having is 14 columns, like age, work class, final weight, education numerical, marital status, occupation, relationship, race, sex, capital gain, capital loss, hours per week, and native country, right? And in the last you have your greater than 50 or less than 50,000, right? So what we do is, once we start looking into the data, we also analyze that there is this minority class and there is a majority class, that there is 25% of data which is greater than 50,000, and there is like 75% of data which is like less than 50,000, right, which is practical enough, right? So